What if I told you that the ending of one of gaming's most beloved titles was a complete fabrication, a carefully constructed lie designed to hide a darker truth? On October 23, 2287, the timeline we were shown defied the very logic the game had established, presenting a statistical impossibility that less than 2% of players even questioned. We are going to dissect the data, scrutinize the hidden audio logs, and expose the massive narrative contradiction that has been hiding in plain sight for years. By the end of this video, you will never look at the Wasteland the same way again, and you will finally understand the heavy price of the salvation you fought so hard to achieve. If you are ready to have your mind blown by the truth they hid from us, make sure to hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep the lights on and the investigations going, and we appreciate every single one of you. Let's start by refreshing our memory on the ending the developers sold us. It was a triumphant moment, a true hero's journey. The protagonist stands before the pivotal choice, activating the purifier or securing the dam, and the screen fades to white with a monologue about hope, rebuilding, and a bright future for the Wasteland. We were told that the water flowed freely, that the radiation was cleansed, and that civilization was poised for a golden age. But look closer at the fine print. The official strategy guide and the in-game terminal entries paint a conflicting picture. We are going to read line by line the final dialogue transcript and compare it with the environmental storytelling that contradicts every word. We will examine the victory condition and why mathematically it shouldn't have been possible given the resource depletion levels logged just hours before in the game's clock. It feels good to win, doesn't it? But that warm feeling is exactly what they were counting on to distract you from the glaring plot holes large enough to drive a truck through. The narrator tells you that the water is clean, yet if you revisit the river in the post-game, the Geiger counter still clicks like a frantic metronome. But the deception runs deeper than just inconsistent environmental details. Let's talk about the immediate aftermath of that triumphant activation. The game tells us the purifier is pumping clean water, but the distribution network is non-existent. If you follow the pipeline geometry from the source, the infrastructure is shattered, rusted, and blocked by collapsed tunnels. There is no physical way for that water to reach the communities that supposedly rely on it. We are talking about a basic engineering failure that the game sweeps under the rug with a sweeping narrative voiceover. They show you a fountain in a central square, a staged propaganda shot, but they don't show you the millions of gallons leaking into the irradiated soil just miles down the line. It's a localized miracle, masquerading as a global solution, a temporary fix for a massive problem. This is where the conspiracy turns into hard evidence, buried deep in the game files, accessible only through data mining tools, are the remnants of the true ending script. These aren't just unused assets. They are fully voiced, motion-captured scenes that were removed from the release version. We will look at the specific file names, the timestamps on the code, and the developer comments left in the script notes. One particular file, labeled End Fail State 01, reveals a scenario where the protagonist fails, but the game forces a success overlay. It's a digital cover-up. We will analyze the texture maps of the final cutscene, zooming in 400% to reveal the hidden symbols and distress signals painted onto the buildings in the background. Details invisible to the naked eye during a normal playthrough, but clearly placed there by a rebellious developer trying to send a message. You have to admire the audacity of it, hiding the truth in plain sight, knowing millions of players would watch that cutscene and never suspect a thing. It is like a magician directing your attention to his right hand while his left hand is taking your wallet. Let's talk cold, hard facts. The in-game economy and power grid statistics were meticulously tracked throughout the game. By the time the credits roll, The Wasteland is operating on a deficit that no single victory could solve. We will break down the resource, distribution charts, population counts, and energy outputs. According to the game's own logic, the power required to run the purification plant was triple the maximum output of the available energy sources. We are talking about a fundamental breach of the game's established physics. We will hear from electrical engineers who have analyzed the fictional schematic and confirmed that the ending would result in a catastrophic failure, not a miracle. The numbers don't lie, but the script does. It is the kind of oversight that keeps me up at night, thinking about the sheer impossibility of it all. They wanted a happy ending so badly, they were willing to break their own rules to give it to us. Who benefits from the lie? Enter the Institute prototypes, the faction that was removed. We will explore the leaked concept art and the narrative arc that was supposed to dominate the third act. This faction, a shadow government, was written out, but their influence remained. We will trace their breadcrumbs through the game world, from the cryptic radio broadcasts to the specific placement of debris that forms their logo when viewed from above. This section will dive deep into the lore implications. If this faction was truly removed, why do NPC dialogue trees still reference the Shadow Men? We will interview voice actors and lore experts who have pieced together the original narrative, revealing a story of manipulation and control that makes the happy ending look like a propaganda reel. It is fascinating to think that an entire shadow narrative exists just beneath the surface, waiting for someone curious enough to connect the dots. It is the ultimate mystery, except the culprit was deleted from the script, and we are left with evidence but no suspect. Digging deeper into this shadow faction, we discovered that their removal created a massive narrative vacuum. The game's main antagonist suddenly lacks motivation for half his actions, his dialogue looping in vague generalities about order and peace. But in the recovered texture files for the Institute faction, we see their true plan. They didn't want to destroy the purifier, they wanted to control it to synthesize a specific compound. The clean water was actually a delivery mechanism for a subtle but controlling agent. When the developers cut the faction, they left the machine in but stripped it of its sinister purpose, turning a tool of domination into a magical fountain of youth. It renders the entire conflict nonsensical. Why would the enemy fight so hard to stop a machine that helps everyone? They wouldn't. They were fighting to stop the protagonist from unknowingly harming the world. In a rare twist of fate, an anonymous developer from the original team reached out under a pseudonym. We will share the excerpts from this correspondence, detailing the intense development pressure and the executive mandate to fix the ending 2 weeks before launch. The developer describes a chaotic environment where the original ending was deemed too dark for test audiences, leading to a hasty rewrite. We will discuss the psychological toll on the writing team, who were forced to compromise their artistic vision. This adds a human element to the technical data, showing that the lie was born from corporate fear, not creative vision. It's a story of art imitating life, where the truth is buried to sell a product. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a story for years, only to have the executives sweep in at the last minute and say, "No, make it sunny." It is enough to make a person cynical, and trust me, I understand that feeling completely. The developer correspondence also hinted at a specific coding patch applied just days before the final version. The patch, officially a performance fix, actually disabled a dynamic weather system tied to the purifier's activation. In the original script, activating the purifier was supposed to trigger torrential toxic rain for an in-game month, a visual representation of the system flushing contaminants. This toxic rain event was meant to eliminate a significant portion of the game's plants and animals, resetting the ecosystem violently. The patch locked the weather to clear skies immediately after the ending, ignoring the ecological disaster the player just triggered. They literally patched out the consequences to sell a fairy tale. We take a tour of the Wasteland one last time, looking at the environmental storytelling that the devs couldn't remove. The graffiti on the walls, the skeletal arrangements, and the placement of specific items tell a story of despair, not hope. We will show you 5 specific locations that act as shrines to the forgotten ending, proving that the world itself remembers the truth, even if the characters don't. The visual language of the game screams a warning that the audio track tries to drown out. You walk through these ruined streets, and you see the skeletons holding hands in a final embrace, or the desperate messages scrawled on bathroom walls, and you realize that the happy ending theme music feels incredibly out of place. It is a mismatch that creates a feeling of unease, like laughing at a somber event. Specifically, look at the placement of the toy cars and rusty tricycles in the celebration zone. They aren't randomly scattered. They are arranged in patterns that mirror the warning signs for high radiation zones. The devs hid the hazard symbols in plain sight, masking them as debris. Why does this matter? Because it changes the entire theme of the game. We will analyze the symbolism of the white light, often associated with the ending, comparing it to nuclear events rather than salvation. The lie transforms the game from a survival story into a political thriller. It forces the player to confront the idea that they were an unwitting agent of a harsh regime. We will discuss the literary devices used, the irony of the savior becoming the destroyer, and the foreshadowing that was dismissed as coincidence. It turns the whole experience into a masterclass in irony, don't you think? You spend 40 hours trying to save the world, only to find out you might have just sealed its fate with a smile on your face. The savior archetype is subverted completely. You didn't bring water, you brought a flood. You didn't bring life, you brought a sterile, controlled silence. How does this revelation impact the franchise's future? We will speculate on how future games might address this change. Will they double down on the lie, or will they finally acknowledge the truth? We will look at the sequel hooks and the DLC content that subtly tries to correct the narrative course. The community is divided, and we will showcase the best fan theories that align with the true ending evidence, turning this into a collective hunt for answers. It is the kind of debate that fuels internet forums for decades, and honestly, it is better entertainment than half the shows on television right now. We are all just detectives in a case that was never meant to be solved, poking at the edges of a digital reality that is crumbling under the weight of its own secrets. There is a prevailing theory among data miners that the sequel, set years later, will reveal that the clean water caused a long-term genetic mutation in the population, explaining the increasingly bizarre creature designs in the sequel trailers. This would be the ultimate payoff. The sequel confirms the bad ending was the real story all along, but it took a decade to reveal the symptoms. If this is true, the developers have played the longest game in gaming history, trusting that the audience would eventually catch up to the situation they unleashed. It turns the franchise into a singular, cohesive tragedy rather than a disjointed series of adventures. We have looked at the code, the cut content, and the contradictory data. The verdict is clear. The ending we watched was a fabrication, but perhaps that makes the game even more profound. It teaches us that history is written by the victors, even in a video game. The deception isn't a flaw, it's a feature, a hidden layer of depth that only the most dedicated players would uncover. It is a brilliant, albeit frustrating, piece of design that respects the intelligence of its audience enough to lie to them, daring them to catch the truth. We have covered the statistical impossibilities, the cut faction, and the developer testimony. And it all points to one conclusion. If you believe the Wasteland deserves the truth, make sure to like this video for more deep dives into gaming's darkest secrets. Thank you for watching, and remember, in the Wasteland, trust no one.